Cynthia Enlow and Andrew Bikovich provide important characteristics of militarism, explaining the necessities of violence and the romanticization of the armed forces. It is important to think about these characteristics in the sense of war, but I also realize that they can be applied to numerous real-life experiences. The first example of militarism that I see in my own life lied within high school athletics for me, specifically track and field, which I played for all 4 years of high school. Enlow describes characteristics of militarism such as having enemies being a natural condition and how human nature is prone to conflict. While conflict within these athletics might not be exceedingly violent, such as in an international war, there are definitely times of tension where violence and aggression will show themselves off. For example, in track at the start of each race, when the girls are lined up on the line, there's a lot of tension to get off the line first, which can lead to a lot of pushing, shoving, tripping, and types of dirty ways to get ahead. In addition, the girls you're running next to on the track become your enemies for however long you spend running, even possibly before or after, regardless of if you're on the same team, from the same state. Bigovich's idea is that there are outsized expectations on the use of force also applies to this, as most of the time when there's an excessive shoving or unsportsmanlike conduct, the race will be called back and girls can be disqualified. It's rare that using violence in this example specifically comes as being a good thing and actually getting someone ahead, which also shows how Bigovich's idea that it's a really outsized expectation that violence is going to get you what you want in life. Lastly, there is a big sense of hierarchical relations within the team for track and field. The seniors and those who are more committed to the sport will receive honors and spots in meets, and it's more likely that older teammates will receive the captain's position and lead the way for the younger athletes. As a runner for all 4 years of high school, I experienced tension and violence, and I've also seen it firsthand fail for perpetrators in the long run. In addition, I've witnessed being led by a captain my freshman year and working my way up these hierarchical relations by proving myself to the team and committing myself, and thus becoming a captain 3 years later. A second example that I have noticed of militarism in my daily life would be my job. There's definitely a hierarchical structure that is necessary to uphold a restaurant venue and have work on as planned to create a successful environment. It works the same way as an ordinary military, using merit and experience to promote positions. Those who have worked longer and harder are way more likely to be promoted to, say, manager or head of the kitchen versus those people who have only been working for a couple months or only come in every other week. In addition, I wanted to touch on the Enlow's idea of feminine people needing more protection. Obviously, females don't need armed protection in the workplace, in a restaurant, but females are given a little bit less credit, as seen through the gender gap in not only my own workplace, but I know a lot of other ones nationwide. Females are just as well suited to do the same jobs and make the same profits as men. They don't need more protection or time off. They're always seen as weaker and unfit for these positions of power when that might not be true at all. I selected both these examples because work and sports have been a major part of my life for the past 4 years and practically all I did outside of high school. So it really shows how these were my everyday life examples of militarism. My initial thoughts of militarism were ideas of violence and the creation of a strict type of curriculum for certain activities, and I never applied it to my everyday life. But after reading Enlow and Bigovich's understandings of the concept, I can now see that it does not necessarily have anything to do with war, international, or domestic conflict, but can be much more broad. It can represent my daily activities, such as athletics and career, exemplifying ideas such as the gender gap and international conflict. One thing that still confuses me a bit about the concept of militarism is why these ideals have not changed. Worldwide, states still believe that through conflict and violence and creation of enemies, that conflict will be resolved. As we can see through Bigovich, for example, there's a very outsized expectation, as I touched on earlier. It is rare, even when violence gets the job it initially set out to complete finish, that there is not collateral damage, that we must ask ourselves if these conflicts are truly worth it. It's hard to watch states perpetuate this never-ending cycle of attack that really ends without mass tragedy of innocent civilians. In my opinion, these concepts need to be reformed. As if states under the impression that such actions are necessary for our nation to be considered militaristic, we are creating a dangerous world of unnecessary violence and toxic ideals. This leads me to ask you, do you think that these concepts of militarism are actually necessary to uphold a successful nation? Or are they simply ideas that have been passed down through centuries of conflict that we're simply too afraid to change?